called as the Agile Manifesto. Very, very important, because this actually set the whole spirit and the whole thinking of Agile. This is the driving force behind all the Agile development methodologies that came in the last couple of decades. This was originally proposed and propounded by all the software professionals in a conference. I think it's the OOPSLA conference, Object-Oriented Programming and Systems, Languages and Architecture, OOPSLA, OOPSLA, in the conference. And they presented this paper, very simple paper, in which they proposed that it is important to focus on people and interactions over processes and tools. So till then, till about 2000, till then, there were a lot of emphasis on processes, emphasis on tools when you talk about software development. But these guys, they proposed, we'll still have that. They're not saying that ditch all of those and then think revolutionary. It's not like that. They actually are saying that we still can have processes, we still can use tools. But you know what? The focus is on the people. Put the focus back on the people, on the teams, on the customers and users, on employees. And you focus on the interactions, how you can actually make them talk to each other better, right? Instead of actually sitting in silos in each of their respective departments. So form multicultural, multidimensional teams, multi-skilled teams, cross-disciplined teams, where they actually interact with each other, where they engage in conversation, where they can work together. So the stress here is more on the people and interactions over the processes and tools. Simple, number one. Number two, what they said was, the most important thing here in this context is actually to deliver a working software. It's not documents. Previously, I was telling an example where I actually created a 750-page document, just a requirements document, a functional requirement specification document, working on that for about a good 7 months. 7 months was actually spent only in documentation because it's such a complex system. Then after that, it went through a lot of iterations, and finally we got the sign off for about 8.5 months from the time I started the project. You know, when the coding was started, it started after about roughly 12 or 13 months after we started the project. Imagine when the customer would get to see the product, when the whole thing. So by this time, it'll have, you know, so many changes in the requirements, so many changes in the company, in the needs of the customers. Everything could have changed. So important thing is to have documentation, but what is important is make it lightweight. So we still capture requirements. Nobody's saying don't work on the requirements, don't give requirements. We still work on requirements, but now what I'm doing is I'm writing requirements just in one-liner, but of course I'll add a lot of description, a lot of wireframes to that, a lot of acceptance criteria given when then to actually describe that user story in a better way. But the focus is actually in terms of delivering a software as soon as possible, not spending 7 months to write a document, but actually having the document just enough so the development team would start working on something and then releasing it to the customer so they can actually have a go in as soon as possible, maybe in a month or 2 months, not 2 years. So that's the whole idea about the manifesto. It actually says that the third most important thing is a customer collaboration. Again, I was saying that in order to get a customer to actually look at your product, to your documents, it used to take such a long time. By the time you actually get hold of the customer and ask them to have a look at your requirements document, they say, okay, I'm busy now, come back later. So after about a good few weeks, you have the customer looking at it, getting the sign off. So you're talking about at least 8 months from the time of the project start to actually get the requirements document signed off. Instead, if you look at Agile, it's all about getting the customer on board on the day one. So you actually have the customer part of your sprint ceremonies. We're going to discuss that in detail the next week, where we talk about sprint planning, the sprint retrospective, sprint review, the showcase of a particular sprint, of a particular product, as and when it is forming. In the showcase, you're actually having the customer into your team, looking at your product as it is developed. They're not spending months and months, but they're actually looking at it in the first few weeks. They're involved, they're engaged, they're actually contributing to the product development as much as the team. So it's not just about contract negotiation. It's not just about you know what, can you increase the budget? Can you increase the timeline? Can you reduce this? No, it's not about that. That's not the only time where we are engaging the customer. Again, a point in case is basically we are talking about the project where we one of the clients actually said that this is going to be a flop show, so we are going to now sue you, the developer organization, for £1 million because we could not deliver the availability point of that. It's about contract negotiation. You know why that happened? Because we engaged with the customer only after a good 14 months after the project started. After the project started, we finished everything, said, oh, you know what, this is what we delivered. But then the customer said, this is not what I wanted. The availability of the report is too late. You need to deliver that in about 10 minutes after the candidate takes the exam, the assessment. But whereas we were delivering it after about a good 40-minute interval. So the problem that we were trying to negotiate with the client about, with the customer about reducing, no, please, reduce the amount. No, please, save us this time. We'll try and work on it better. No, it's not about that. If you engage the customer, if we did that project today, we would have actually got the feedback from the customer, perhaps if not in the first week, at least in the second week of the project start. So we don't, end up till the last stage of the project. Very important, customer collaboration. And then responding to change is the key. I mean, it's not about fighting the change. It's not about having a strict, project plan. It's not about, working for 3 months to create a project plan, resource plan, Gantt charts, and then saying that, hey, yeah, we have got this, we'll not make any changes. No, things change. People change. Circumstances change. Requirements change. Everything is bound to change. Agile is about change. Agility, as they say. Agility, if we compare that to a sprint, for example, that's why I actually use that as a kind of a mnemonic for this one, as a metaphor for some of the concepts that we wanted to present, because like a spring, how it takes the thing and it would actually kind of nimble and again come back to its shape. So no matter, it's not resisting the change, it's actually taking in the force, taking in the kind of strength that is applied on it. The same way, whatever we do, we need to actually kind of embrace, adapt the change. And that's why it's called adaptation. It's not adoption. Adoption is different. Adopt is you follow something, you adopt a particular lifestyle, adopt a particular way of living. But then adapt, A-D-A-P-T, adaptation is you modify yourself in the way that is required. You adjust, you kind of modulate and shape yourself in the way that the change requires you to. That's why adaptation, again, very important. So this is the only thing that they talked about, nothing else. So here, this is the Agile Manifesto. This was presented 20 years ago in about 2000. Yeah, they actually presented this, and then it was really, really well received from then on. And then a lot of different methods came over to kind of embrace this philosophy, this